Hi all, this is tuition for those that require it on set number 3. It's another 3 6/8s, 3 4-parted 6/8s. Bread and butter again, really, these are the ones that we will use mostly because they're easiest to march to, so I'm told. I'm not going to go through these in intricate detail because the odd grace note here or there missing won't matter too much. Also, the settings in them are pretty generic. These, again, we're taking from the Scots Guards books, Farewell to the Creeks and the Glendaruel Highlanders, is in Scots Guards book 1. We'll get the music up for that. And the Cock of the North, this particular setting is from Scots Guards book 2. We'll get the music up for that as well. So, firstly, to the Cock of the North, very well known tune. Points to look out for this really in here are the tackums. Don't clip them too much, please. There are notes which have doublings they can do without the doublings. There are terluiths in there. If we can possibly actually play the terluiths rather than a grip, it's going to help us stay together. So let's have a look at the first part. We have a high A to introduce the first part, which will come in off the E. In bar 1, coming off the high A, technically there should be a G grace note on that C, but we're coming off the high A, so there's no grace note there. Please put in the D grace note on the low A, and you're going to come back to the C with a D grace note again. So try and watch that grace note sequence there. Moving along to bar number 3 in the first line, we see the same movement again, except this time we're coming from the E, so we do put in the G grace note on the C, followed by the D grace note on the A, and back to the C with the D grace note again. That's really all I want to say about part number 1 without going into any great detail. Please try and get these tackums right. It's the tackums that make this tune. I'll play that part for you once more. So, moving on to part number 2, we still have the tackums in here. They come in bar 3, but in bars 1 and 2, it's the long notes, sorry, the high A's and the F's that make this tune. Please give these notes their full value. We're going to use a high G doubling to come into the part, and I'll play the full part for you because there is a second time on the repeat of the part. We play a different second line, and it's not just a repeat from the second line of line 1, it is slightly different. So let's go through that, just really throwing out these long notes and still paying attention to the tackums. The other challenge that this tune tends to throw up is we have a lot of C to E movements, so guard against crossing noises in these C to E movements. Also at the end, the final bar, in every part of this tune, please give the low A after the grace note its full value. It's a very, very long note. So, on to part 3, very, very similar to part number 1, so similar that it's frequently mistaken for part number 1, but we replace the tackums with terluiths. Two things to note here: we're looking for proper terluiths if you can. If you end up with a grip, no problem at all there really, but the E grace note at the end of the terluith would be nice. We also have the Tackhams in there. Pretty straightforward if you manage the Turluith. A long C before the Turluith, back to C in bars 1, 3 and 5. So what you're seeing there is yet another tune which is very, very well known, but of course because it's well known doesn't mean that it's particularly easy if it's played properly, and that's the rider there. If it's played properly, it's a heavy enough tune. So moving on to part 4, same rule really as part 3. Part 3 sounds like part 1, part 4 sounds like part 2. Please don't confuse the two. There are differences. Bar 1 is the same as bar 1 and part 2. The changes are start coming in bar 2. Again, part 4 also has a second time in here, but the gift is that it's the same second time as is used in part number 2. So there's not a lot of learning to be done in this part. It's just remembering that it is different from part number 2, and here it is in full. Now, apologies for the crossing noise in there. If you heard it, it certainly was there. If you didn't hear it, then just ignore it, it never happened. So, moving on to Farewell to the Creeks. Brief bit about it. The Creeks refer to an area in Aberdeenshire. The tune is more well known now as the 51st Division's Farewell to Sicily, or The Banks of Sicily by Hamish Henderson. This tune actually means quite a bit to me, because my grandfather was in the 51st Highland Division as a piper, and he served in Sicily. It's also, every band has a favourite tune, or a tune that they play most in the Scots Guards. It was Leaving Port Askaig, and the second tune in that set was Farewell to the Creeks. So this has had a powery playing, certainly from me, over the past few years. We are going to start that tune with the introductory high A. The tune itself is not particularly difficult. As far as the song goes, the song uses parts 1, 3 and 4 and does not use part 2. So part 2 may be the only part which is unfamiliar to you. It's all about long notes. We have some E grace notes down to D and recovering with a D grace note to C, which might be a little bit intricate and require practice, but it's really pretty straightforward. Just pay attention to the long notes. If you know the song, the tune follows it, again apart from part 2, exactly, so that can help you. The first part, in part number 1, we meet a half doubling on E coming off the high A there. Please give that half doubling as much time as you would give a full doubling. Moving along to bar number 3, make sure that you really hit that low G in the grip, and then up to E from the low G without catching on the low A. And that's really it. Part number 2 is the busiest part, really. A couple of things which I'm not too worried about. The first note after the introductory note, that's the E in part 1, has a doubling with a back grace note or a high A grace note on it. there's no great harm done if that turns into a... Sorry, cancel that actually. I'm not going to stop the tape now. If we move to bar 2, the F doubling has a back grace note or a high A grace note on it. If that turns into a half doubling, no great harm done. More sure of my ground now, moving straight on to bar 3 there, we see the Terluith from C to C. It would be absolutely fantastic if you could get that full Terluith in. If you don't get it in every time, please don't worry too much about it. So, on to the chorus of the song now. This is part 3. Very, very simple, probably the most recognisable part of the tune. Really, all I have to say on this part is please give the notes their full value. Half doubling on C to start, give that C the full value, then go down to the low G for that throw on D. Don't rush from the C to E in bar 2. Doesn't have to be that quick. And really that's our part here. Part number 4, much the same, long notes. Please use open doublings if you can. So what you can hear in there, really, really long high A. When we move to bar number 2, we have an E there as the first note. Now, that's the one we can really need to pause on. The temptation is to come off that E. That's me falling into the song a little bit there, but you see what I'm getting at. It's a nice long E, long high A, long F and long E in that first sequence there. So, moving on to Glendaruel Highlanders or Campbelltown Loch. One thing to be aware for the march is that there are actually songs to the 3 of these tunes. You might find people singing along if in fact you can hear them. Please don't be put off by them and concentrate on what we are doing. Glendaruel Highlanders starts with that introductory E. Pretty much everyone knows at least the first part. Terluith's in the first part, Grip's in the first part, all over the place. It is quite a busy tune. So just take your time with these notes, play all the embellishments very, very open and try and get everything in. Now you'll see from the music that I'm missing out a grace note. If you go to the end of bar 2 there, you'll see that there's a grace note on that E. There may well should be. I've never played it, and because I'm trying to demonstrate from you and get everything done in one take, I'm just missing it out rather than trying to put it in and making a mess of things. So on that note, I have no problems with you missing it out either. It does seem to be quite busy, this particular version. The main thing for you guys, yes, try and get all the embellishments correct, but we're looking for note values, nice long notes all the time. So, part number 2 here has a second time again. So I'm going to go through the full thing. We have lots of doublings in part 2. Please play them nice and open and balanced. When we come to the repeat, we have several very, very long notes. If you could give them their full value, that would be great. other thing to watch in part 2 is in some of these runs, particularly this is in bar number 7 of each part, make sure it's E, D, B. Sometimes you'll hear it's E, D, B, not a C. That comes in elsewhere in this this part as well. In these runs, please play what's there. If you hear someone playing E, C, B, they've probably learned the thing by ear. So, there are some differences coming played in part number 3 from the way I'm going to play it, and I'll try and show you what they are quickly. This is probably the simplest version. Now, the first thing to note, I was just talking about the runs with D to E. In bar number 1 here, we can see that the runs do come from E, C and B. So that's for part 3. Please restrict that but to part 3. Don't play it in part 2 or part 1. The B at the start, the introductory note of B goes straight down to low G for the grip up to C. When we return to line number 2, frequently coming off the high A, it's played. That might come, if you've been playing this tune before, it might come automatically. Again, no great harm done. That's actually the way I would normally play it. What I'm trying to do here is play it off the music. And again, I believe I omitted a grace note. Why? The other thing I do here. Now, you can see in the music, after the E there, it should be straight to a high G doubling. The way I'm playing it is a very swift F and then up to the high G before moving on to the next bar. Apologies for that. Again, I'm trying to get this done in double quick time, so I haven't quite adjusted there. Therefore, if you decide to play that way, no harm done. I would very much doubt if you would hear that. So, part number 4. And that's back into Cock of the North again. I would ask that you do that. The chances of us marching down the street and playing a 6/8 march set straight through and playing the 3 tunes exactly are quite slim. You will have to be prepared to stop at any time actually, so please pay attention to what's happening at the front. Part number 4, just going back to that, going into the repeat of the part when we enter the second time. These notes here, sometimes they can be reversed. It can either be the E that's cut or the E can be held. Now in the Scots Guards book here it's actually shown as even, and I've never heard that. Because we're going to be coming together and playing this without having practiced it much, I'm not really worried about that. And that won't sound completely together, but let's just go with it anyway. So that is really your introduction to these 3 tunes if you needed it. Thanks for bearing with me. As usual, any particular problems, just give me a shout and I will crack on with the rest of the sets as soon as I can. Good luck.